Coming up, hot and humid.
I do feel like everywhere I walk, the sun's beaming on me.
As temperatures sizzle, ways you and your furry friends can stay cool and beat the heat.
Consider that even if you're not super uncomfortable, it might actually be uncomfortable and even verging on unsafe for your dog, especially because they're lower to the ground. The heat from the concrete, from the street is rising up and then it's hitting their underbelly. And then also the pads of their feet are on that hot asphalt.
Also, big shot, an elephant at the Houston Zoo receives the first ever mRNA vaccine.
So this vaccine is the very first of its kind, and we hope that this can save elephants at zoos all over the world and also elephants in the wild.
We're in Texas with the details. Then, marking Juneteenth, we'll visit a new site in Alabama, hoping to educate kids and grown-ups about a dark chapter in American history. How do you share this story with kids?
Well, in many ways, I wanted this site to be a little more kind of accessible for kids. A lot of these spaces are spaces that you just step into and you just feel something in that space.
Plus, say hello to this red-ruffled lemur turning heads in Tennessee.
This is NBC Nightly News, Kids Edition.
Welcome back to Nightly News Kids Edition. I'm Lester Holt. It is great to be with you. Hope you're all having a great week. I think Lucy is. We have an awesome lineup ahead, including a lot of animal stories making headlines this week. Plus, a little later on, some important tips for pet owners like me when it comes to our four-legged friends and summer weather. Lucy and I can't wait to bring you that story. And also, speaking of weather, let's begin the week with the record heat millions of Americans are experiencing as summer officially begins. In many places, it's hot and humid. Cities have opened up cooling centers while kids are finding relief in pools and splash pads as the excessive heat continues across the U.S. Some areas are being hit with sweltering triple-digit temperatures. And health officials want to remind everyone to take the necessary steps to avoid any heat-related sicknesses.
You just want to make sure that you're staying adequately hydrated, you're wearing loose clothing, if you have sunglasses, wear those, just any type of thing, staying in the AC, any type of thing just to stay cool.
We hope everyone can stay safe. Meantime, another story making headlines this week involves an elephant named Tess and the world of medicine. Just like you go to the doctor for vaccines to stay healthy, well, animals do too. And history was made this week at the Houston Zoo when Tess, an Asian elephant, bravely stepped up and received a brand new vaccine. Let's get details from our friend Erin McLaughlin.
This week at the Houston Zoo, a historic moment.
Good, Tess. Good girl. So good.
40-year-old Asian elephant Tess is the very first elephant in the world to receive a dose of a brand new mRNA vaccine, created to help prevent a disease that most commonly affects baby Asian elephants.
This vaccine was so important for elephants all over the world, not just in human care, but also in the wild.
So this is a vaccine that's going to help prevent baby elephants from getting sick from an illness called EEHV, or elephant endotheliotropic herpes virus. And that's a really big word for just meaning that it's a really bad illness for these little babies. So when we think about how to protect our babies, to keep them healthy, to make sure that they can grow up to be big, strong, and healthy, we think about vaccines. So just like kids go to their doctors, their pediatricians to get vaccines to stay healthy, we wanted to work with Baylor College of Medicine and our dear friend, Dr. Paul Ling, to create a vaccine to help protect baby elephants in the same way.
If the mRNA vaccine sounds familiar, that's because this type of vaccine made headlines during the pandemic.
Many of us have had mRNA vaccines from COVID-19. And so this vaccine was designed around principles that are quite similar to the COVID vaccines, with the difference being that some of the components or parts of the virus that were expressed in the COVID vaccine, we've specifically engineered these to be specific for the elephant herpes virus.
Remember, a vaccine helps prevent infection by preparing the body to help fight foreign invaders such as a virus. For the past 15 years, the Houston Zoo and the Baylor College of Medicine have teamed up to study this disease.
So if we open this here, we're going to look in this upper cabinet, And this is where we have all of our elephant plasma.
Using new technologies in these animal species is something that hasn't been tried before. And so we're really excited that we're able to implement new technologies very quickly.
What's more, Tess was an ideal candidate for this new vaccine.
Tess is a really brave elephant, and she's gotten lots of different vaccines throughout her life. So just how kids sometimes get lots of vaccines as they're growing up, Tess has gotten a lot of vaccines throughout her whole entire life. And hopefully at some level, she knows how special and important she is to elephants everywhere.
We're told Tess is doing just fine after she received the shot. The zoo will continue to monitor her throughout the week and in the coming months to make sure she's happy and healthy.
Tess is one of our mom elephants, so she does have younger offspring that are at the Houston Zoo. So at some point, some of her younger offspring will also get this vaccination.
Advancing veterinary medicine and working to save the lives of countless baby elephants.
So this vaccine is the very first of its kind, and we hope that this can save elephants at zoos all over the world and also elephants in the wild. It represents hope, it represents being able to be healthy, to be strong, and to have lots of elephants till forever.
That's nice. This is nice. Erin, thanks so much. And Tess, way to go. This week, kids and grown-ups across the country are marking Juneteenth. It's a national holiday, but have you wondered about the history behind Juneteenth? Well, let's take a look. It's hard to imagine that people can be owned, but that's the reality of our country's painful history. You might have learned this in school already. Over a long period, black people were owned by white people. It's called slavery. Slaves were forced to work, but not paid. They could be bought and sold from one slave owner to another, like property. Even their children could be taken away and sold. A new site documenting the history and impact of slavery in America just opened in Montgomery, Alabama, on the shores where the slave trade once flourished. So the narrative will begin on this boat.
Absolutely. Being sold down the river, being trafficked by boat or by rail was an absolutely terrifying experience for enslaved people.
Brian Stevenson is the founder and chief executive officer of the Equal Justice Initiative, which created the Freedom Monument Sculpture Park.
There's not much in the visual record of that era that helps you get a sense of the humanity of these people.
The 17-acre memorial allows visitors of all ages to step into history, from the places they were held.
They would put them in holding pens where they would wait until the auction.
To the places they slept. I noticed this paper.
Yes. They would collect newspapers and stuff it on the walls just to create some warmth in the winter. This was built in 1852. There is something about being in a space that, was inhabited for a long time by enslaved people.
Also along the trail, the laws of slavery are posted.
All of these laws really created an order that empowered people to use violence to maintain slavery.
How do you share this story with kids?
Well, in many ways, I wanted this site to be a little more kind of accessible for kids. A lot of these spaces are spaces that you just step into and you just feel something in that space. And you can feel that even if you're 10 or 11. And I think that'll be part of it. We understand that children need to understand history completely, but we have shied from talking about the history of racial injustice. And I think that has to end because we're going to be blind to some things that we need to be aware of if we're going to get.
Got to find a way to tell this story.
We've got to.
In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing the slaves. However, this could not be enforced in many places until after the Civil War ended in 1865. And because they didn't have phones or the internet way back then, it took some time for the news to travel to some of the states. It was June 19, 1865, when Major General Gordon Granger and his Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, with word the war had ended and all the slaves were free. The next year, people started celebrating Juneteenth, a blend of the words June and 19th, to mark the end of slavery. And this celebration has continued every year around the country and world ever since. It's an important date for all of us to remember. This week, people are commemorating Juneteenth, including here at the Sculpture Park in Montgomery. The centerpiece of the park, this wall embossed with 122,000 surnames that were adopted by newly emancipated slaves during the 1870 census.
Prior to the 1870 census, enslaved people could only be numbers in the census or first name. And these are the names that represent the 4 million people who were emancipated and recorded in 1870. And, we wanted to see them in a place of honor, see them on a wall.
Scanning the names. You know what I'm doing now?
Of course.
I find what I'm looking for. Here we go.
Yeah, there it is.
Marshall Holt.
Yes.
Now, that name was picked for some reason.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't know why.
And what's interesting is a lot of the names were names that people heard.
I sit there and I look at that and I think of who that name represents.
Yeah.
What they went through.
Yeah.
Could they ever imagine me?
Yeah, that's the thing that's powerful.
Standing here.
Yeah.
The urge is to grieve for them. Brian Stevenson wants us to honor them. He quotes from the inscription at the base of the wall.
We honor your perseverance in the midst of sorrow. We honor your struggle for freedom. Your children love you.
And the line that jumps out at me, the country you built must honor you.
Yeah.
And that's what this monument hopes to do.
Absolutely.
Okay, time for our pop quiz now. The question this week, what does a paleontologist study? A, skyscrapers, B, buckets, C, fossils. Let me give you a few seconds to think about it. Okay, time's up. The answer is C, fossils. Paleontology is the study of ancient life from dinosaurs to prehistoric plants, mammals, fish, insects, fungi, and even microbes. Fossil evidence reveals how organisms changed over time and what our planet was like long ago. All right, now for our picture of the week, and I have my pal Lucy on hand, as you can see. For this one, we head to Tennessee, where our friend Dylan Dreyer takes a look at a little guy who has been capturing a lot of attention since his birth earlier this year.
Say hello to Helios.
Our little baby boy is a red ruff lemur.
Born in March, he's the second one born at the zoo in the last year.
All of our red ruff lemurs here at Nashville are named after Greek mythology. And so we named him Helios after the god of the sun, since he was born during the day, and that's not typical. He also was born with a pretty white face, which is not typical for red ruff lemurs either. And that specific Helios is also known for the white around his face.
As Helios gets older, he will lose a lot of the white coloration he was born with, and he will go to mostly black.
He'll stay black and red then the rest of his life, and he'll be fully grown at 6 months.
And guess what? Helios is already displaying his spunky and adventurous personality.
He is trying to grow up faster than we can handle. He is hopping around. He has recently met the rest of his family, and he loves to chase his older sister. She's only a year older than him around. He's hopping, and he's already starting to eat.
Also, in case you're wondering, lemurs are not monkeys or apes.
They're what's called a prosimian. So they're kind of this weird in-between of the two. And they're also really big for their environment, because while we think of bees and butterflies as pollinators, lemurs are also pollinators. So as they eat the nectar from flowers, they can pollinate as they walk around their environment.
Did you know lemurs are considered critically endangered?
There's over 100 different types of species of lemurs, and they're only found on one island of Madagascar. And so there's not a lot of space that they live in, so each subspecies is critically endangered. Our little baby lemur was one of less than 200 red ruff lemurs that are in the American Association of Zoos. So it's really important that he was born, because it helps with the genetics and the species survival plan to keep up with the lemurs going.
An important birth, helping to spread awareness about this species.
Finally, with temperatures soaring this week, it's a great time to make sure you and your furry friends are staying cool and healthy too. Here with some tips on keeping our pets safe is our Kids Edition correspondent, Julius.
During the dog days of summer, it's important to make sure your pets are keeping cool. While the warmth of the sun might feel great to you, your dog could have a very different reaction to the heat.
Consider that even if you're not super uncomfortable, it might actually be uncomfortable and even verging on unsafe for your dog, especially because they're lower to the ground. The heat from the concrete, from the street is rising up and then it's hitting their underbelly. And then also the pads of their feet are on that hot asphalt, and yours aren't, you're wearing shoes.
To keep your pets safe, try to keep them inside during the hottest time of the day, usually mid to late afternoon. And make sure that indoors or out, there's plenty of water for them to drink. And even if your pup looks like they're having a blast, they might need your help to remember to slow down.
Sometimes with dogs especially, they'll be so gung-ho to play with us, to keep up with us, that they won't stop themselves. They won't interrupt the play to go have a drink of water. So you kind of have to be there to lead them to it and really encourage them and tone down the play, tone down the movement, so that they take a breath, they calm down, maybe let them have a few moments to sit in the shade or spend most of your time in the shade.
Keep an eye out for these early indicators that your pet might be starting to get overheated. Tiredness or sluggishness, drooling or panting more than usual. If left untreated, this can quickly lead to a dangerous condition called heat stroke.
When things start to get more extreme, like diarrhea and vomiting, at that point, you have to quickly get to a veterinarian because heat stroke can progress very, very quickly.
And if you're experiencing itchy eyes or a runny nose from seasonal allergies, it's possible your pet might be too.
Horses, dogs, cats, all animals, all mammals potentially can have allergies. And the spring and the summertime certainly can exacerbate those issues.
Luckily, your veterinarian can help prescribe medicine to alleviate the discomfort of allergies. And during your pet's next checkup, it's a good idea to make sure they're up to date on treatments, keeping them safe from critters like ticks and heartworms that emerge in the hotter months.
Almost anywhere you are in the US, you do need to be concerned about fleas and ticks and parasites like heartworm, roundworm, hookworm. And in this day and age, there's so many preventatives that are so easy to use that really all it requires on the part of the pet parent is to make sure they have a conversation with their veterinarian in the springtime.
Lastly, if you're headed on a road trip this summer, you should never under any circumstances leave your pet unsupervised in a hot car, even with the window cracked.
The best way to keep your pet safe is to keep them well supervised, especially when you travel away from home.
Here's to a spectacular and safe summer for you and your pets alike. For Nightly News Kids Edition, this is Julius and Joey. Back to you, Lester.
Well, Julius, thanks so much. Great information. Well, that's going to do it for us. Parents, just a reminder, if your child has a question about any topic in the news, email a video to us at nightlynewskids@nbcuni.com, or you could whine, and that'll get our attention too. We'll try to answer them, though, in an upcoming episode. You can also follow us on Instagram @NightlyKids. Thanks for watching. Remember to take care of yourself and each other. So long, everybody. And Lucy, you want to dance our way out of the program? Come here. Hey, doodle dance. Doodle dance. Say goodbye, everybody.